long-term value is in bringing consumers into Epic's multi-game, multi-platform, social, and e-commerce system. Was that your view on the purpose of these minimum guarantees back in September 2019?
Yes.
Does that remain your view today?
Yes.
And then going down into the next paragraph, you say the complete future value of these deals is a function of new user LTV. Is that lifetime value?
Yes.
Comma, of the effect of new exclusive and non-exclusives on re-engaging lapsed store users, of extent to which third-party games drive Fortnite and vice versa. And then you say, of the extent to which Epic's strategy can drive business model competition across platforms to benefit our own games and leverage the disruption to establish the leading cross-platform social ecosystem for gaming. And is that one of the main reasons why you entered into these minimum guarantees?
Yes.
And is that one of the main reasons why you opened the Epic Games Store in the first place?
Yes, we aspire to have a store on many platforms.
And then you refer to Xbox Live, PlayStation, and Steam, and you state that these platforms are all locked to, or games are all locked to one platform in those entities. Is that right?
Yes.
And if I could ask you, please, sir, to look at Exhibit 4361. Tell me when you have that.
I'm there.
Excellent. And do you recognize this to be an Epic Games Store deck regarding a review of performance and strategy for the store that was created for a presentation on October 25, 2019?
Yes.
And if you could please turn, sir, to page .020, page 20.
Yes.
And this shows a 5-year P&L and user forecast, correct?
Yes.
And this is a 5-year forecast as of October 2019, correct?
These are multiple versions of forecasts.
One being an aggressive pursuit model, correct?
Yes.
And what is an aggressive pursuit model?
This was Epic very heavily investing in the business to promote growth.
And the other being the winding down model, correct?
Yes, this was looking at the worst case scenario where the store fails and we just have to pay out minimum guarantees despite that.
All right. So let's look first at the aggressive pursuit model, and I will drive straight to the bottom line here. If we look down to the...
Warren, I'm going to stop you for a moment. I don't have that document when I get it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
4361.
You can hand one up if you'd like. DX, Your Honor. 4361. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sweeney, on page .020 of Exhibit 4361, I'd ask you to look, please, at the EBIT lines for these two scenarios. Do you see those lines?
Yes.
And what is EBIT?
Earnings before interest and corporate tax.
Okay. And this shows, this tracks this tracks earnings, if you will, these estimated earnings, both on an annual basis across these years from 2019 to 2027, and on a cumulative projected basis, correct?
Yeah.
So in other words, how the company, the store is projected to do each year, and then how the store is projected to have done, taken together over the years, correct?
Yeah.
And if we look at those lines, we see that when we get out to 2024 under the aggressive pursuit model, that is the first year where a profit is projected, correct?
Yeah.
So in other words, but the cumulative, and that is a profit of, is that $15 million? And then how the store is, but it was also projected that as of 2024, the cumulative earnings of the company would be a negative. Those lines, we see that in $854 million.
Yes, that's the cumulative earnings of this store.
The cumulative earnings will be negative $854 million, correct?
Yes.
And if we then track out what is called here as the flow from prior years to 2025, 2026, and 2027, by 2027, the store is still estimated to be in a cumulative negative state of a loss of $719 million, correct? Cumulative earnings will be negative $854 million, correct? Yes. And if we then track out and what is called here as estimated earnings for that year, for that each year standing alone, is only $5 million, correct? By 2027, the store is still estimated to be in a cumulative. And then if we look over at the winding down model, we see that if we go out to 2024, that is the first year where there is a projected profit, a positive amount of money for operations for that year alone, correct?
Yes.
That's $36 million.
Yes.
And there would still be a cumulative loss under the winding down model of $654 million, correct?
Yes.
And if we go out to 2027, we see that the cumulative loss would be $642 million, correct?
Yes.
And of course, these numbers don't include any of the unallocated costs and expenses we talked about before, correct? For example, any of the shared technology development that may benefit the store.
I need a minute. I'm not sure that's correct. There's a people cost running into the tens of millions of dollars in this model. So I think the finance team may have attempted to do some cost attribution.
So, Mr. Sweeney, are you saying that there may be a headcount cost in here?
Yes.
Okay.
A line called people.
So among the expenses that are included in these forecasts are the headcount expenses specific to the store, correct?
I don't know what the finance team was referring to when they wrote people here.
But there are no engineering costs in here anywhere, are there?
I don't know whether engineering costs are included in people.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney, let's talk for a few minutes. And we'll
Okay, can I just make sure our record is clear? Are you moving
Thank you, Your Honor.
4361?
I would have gotten there eventually. Can I please move, first of all, BX 3818 into evidence, if I haven't done that?
You haven't. So 3818 is admitted, but we'll wait until I hear from Ms. Forrest
Thank you,
after
Your Honor.
lunch.
And I'd also move to admit exhibit BX 4361.
I assume no objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
4361 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sweeney, you testified yesterday that by the spring of 2020, you had initiated Project Liberty, correct?
You're in the planning and preparation phases at that point.
Okay, and by that time, you had hired your lawyers who helped you implement that, correct?
I'm saying yes.
Okay. And those are the lawyers who represented you in this lawsuit?
Yes.
And you also, in the spring, you hired a public relations firm, correct?
Yes.
And by May 2020, you had settled on your strategy regarding the hot fix, correct?
At that point, we had a plan of record that was plan of record that included the hot fix.
And so if you could please take a look at Exhibit 4419, DX 4419. Do you have that exhibit in front of you?
Yes.
And do you recognize this to be an internal Epic email chain from May 11th, 2020?
Yes.
And the first email at the top of the first page is actually from a gentleman named Mark Rain, correct?
Yes.
And he's the co-founder of Epic Games?
Yes, he joined Epic in 1992.
And he owns about 4% of the company?
Thereabouts.
And if we could go back, please, to the first email in this chain from May 11th at 11:25 a.m. It's from Daniel Vogel. Who is Mr. Vogel?
Daniel Vogel is Epic's Chief Operating Officer.
And Mr. Vogel states, making sure we are all in alignment on approach and what to focus our limited mind share on. And then he goes on to say, the critical dependency on going live with our V-Bucks price reduction efforts is finding the most effective way to get Apple and Google to reconsider without us looking like the baddies. Do you see that?
Yes.
And did you agree with Mr. Vogel that that was a critical issue related to Project Liberty?
I was focused on various other things.
Okay, you were leaving this to Mr. Vogel, the Chief Operations Officer.
He played a major role in the planning of the price drop.
Thank you. Now we go on to say, he goes on to say, here is my understanding of the plan. We submit a build to Google and Apple with the ability to hotfix on our payment method that passes the savings on to customers. We flip the switch when we know we can get by without having to update the client for 3 weeks or so. Our message is about passing on price savings to players. Google and Apple will immediately pull the build for new players and potentially take an even more aggressive stance. And first of all, you agree with Mr. Vogel about what the plan regarding the hotfix was as of May 11, 2020, correct?
Yes, that's the plan pertaining to the hotfix.
Okay. And the point in flipping the switch at a point where there would be 3 weeks until an update was that even after the direct pay option had been implemented, it would remain in place for players, and they would be able to continue playing cross-platform because they would be on the same version as other players on other platforms, correct?
Yes.
But after Fortnite was updated and the version on iOS remained the previous version because Apple had pulled it, the players on iOS would no longer be able to interact with other platforms. Correct.
Apple and Google brought Fortnite, which I was not certain would happen.
Mr. Vogel was there, wasn't
he? Mr. Vogel, what he was saying.
And your email on page 1 from May 11th at 12:44 p.m. It's about 2/3 of the way down the page. Let me know when you see that. And you say, "Hi, Ed," and you're referring now to Ed Zobrist in the email below?
Yes.
Who is Mr. Zobrist?
An Epic executive involved in our mobile gaming strategy.
And you say, "Hi, Ed, I don't seem to be invited to a Wednesday meeting. Please add me to all meetings on the topic. Please keep me in the loop on this topic 100%. Please feel free to come to me directly in email or otherwise anytime to get clarification on anything. Otherwise, it heads off the rails and I have to fix it and undo a bunch of work." You're referring now to your general efforts as the leader of the Project Liberty initiative, correct?
Yes.
Now, yesterday we discussed with your council that on June 30th, 2020, Epic sent an email to Tim Cook, Bill Schiller, Craig Federighi, and Matt Fisher, correct?
Yes.
And that was also the same day that Epic renewed its developer program license agreement, wasn't it?
I'm not aware. I'm aware that we renewed our agreement in June sometime.
You are aware that Epic renewed its developer program license agreement in June 2020 within hours, days, or weeks of sending this email, correct?
Yes.
And let's turn back to Exhibit 4477.
Move to amend 4419.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to admit 4419.
Seeing no objection,
No objection, Your Honor.
submitted.
Mr. Sweeney, have you managed to locate 4477?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Mr. Sweeney, just a couple quick comments on this since you did address it yesterday. But in your email, after setting out your two demands for computing payment processing options and also a computing Epic Game Store app available through the iOS App Store and through direct installation that has equal access to the underlying operating system features for software installation and update as the iOS App Store itself has. Let me pause there. Those are the two things you were asking for on June 30th, 2020, correct?
And also that we hope that Apple will make these options available to all iOS developers.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. But the two items you were demanding are set out at the top under items 1 and 2, correct?
These are the options. These are the capabilities I said Epic would like to offer. Capabilities that we would like to offer consumers.
And Mr. Sweeney, after saying that you hope that Apple will also make these options equally available to all iOS developers, in the next paragraph, you note that in order for Epic to have these two capabilities, Apple would need to provide a side letter or alter its contracts and standards documents to remove such restrictions to allow Epic to provide a competing app store and competing payment processing option to iOS customers. That's what you said on June 30th, 2020, correct?
Yes.
And you went on to say, please confirm within 2 weeks if Apple agrees in principle to allow Epic to provide a competing app store and competing payment processing, in which case we will meet with your team to work out the details, correct? That's what you said on June 30th, 2020?
Yes.
By the way, Mr. Sweeney, if I look down further in that last paragraph, you state, if we do not receive your confirmation, we will understand that Apple is not willing to make the changes necessary to allow us to provide Android users with the option of choosing their App Store and payment processing system. Do you see that?
Yes, that's my typo.
Can I assume you sent this same email message to Google on June 30th, 2020?
Similar email to Google on that same day. A little bit too similar.
So in that one, you generally referred to Android rather than Apple, correct?
Yes.
And here you just missed changing Android to Apple in one instance, correct?
Yes, sir.
So this is essentially a form demand letter, correct?
This was clearly customized to the specific policies of each platform, which differs.
Mr. Swain, if we could please look at Exhibit DX3774. Let me know when you're there, sir. And do you recognize Exhibit DX3774 as an update to the Board of Directors on Project Liberty dated July 27, 2020?
It's either the update we gave the board or a draft of it.
And if you would turn, please, sir, to page 2, 002. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes.
And you state here that, and by the way, you are the chairman of the board of Epic Games, correct?
Yes.
And you state here that the time is now. Solve this problem before AR takes off, and that rate is set at 30%. Did I read that correctly at the bottom of the page?
Yes.
And AR is a reference to augmented reality?
Yes.
And that's a recent innovation in gaming?
I think it's a technology that's still in development in gaming.
Fair enough. So it's kind of the bleeding edge of gaming technology, correct?
Gaming and also consumer computing.
And in fact, Apple's engineers are at the cutting edge of augmented reality, correct?
Apple, the robust AR SDK, as do several other companies.
And you're familiar then with Apple's ARKit?
Yes.
And in fact, Unreal Engine supports ARKit, correct?
Yes.
Meaning that it helps developers to work with it, correct?
Yes.
And you believe that Apple, through its innovations in AR, is going to be a meaningful participant in augmented reality gaming going forward, correct?
I expected Apple to be a significant AR market participant in the future.
And yesterday, you testified in response to a question that revenue for Epic Games in 2020 was up. Do you recall that testimony generally?
Yes.
But you weren't asked anything about 2019, were you?
No.
And Epic's revenue in 2019 was down from 2018, correct?
Yes.
And while it was up in 2020, it was not back up to 2018 levels, was it?
At what point in time?
Let's go year over year, sir.
Sorry, I'm not certain of Epic's 2018 revenues.
You are certain, though, aren't you, sir, that 2020 received a particularly historically unique pop because of the pandemic?
Yes.
Lots of people at home looking to do things, correct?
Yes.
So lots of people playing digital video games like Fortnite, correct?
Lots of people were playing Fortnite.
Yes. And if you would go back, please, to Exhibit PX2463. This was a document used with you by Epic's counsel.
Before.
Yeah, it was not in the binder I've handed you. It would have been provided by your counsel yesterday.
So did you give him that document?
I have not handed it up. I'm about to, Your Honor. I have another copy for the court. Yeah, so it's,
No.
thank you.
Thank you.
This was previously admitted.
Mr. Sweeney, now that I provided it to you, do you have exhibit TX2463 in front of you?
Yes.
And just go down, please, to on the first page of that exhibit, under the highlights section. Do you see that?
Yes.
States that total gross revenue in the second quarter of 2019 was $1.1 billion, down 27% year over year. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
And this information from Mr. Babcock would be accurate information, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Who's Mr. Babcock?
He was Epic's CFO at the time.
And when does Epic's second quarter end?
End of June.
And if you would turn to page 2, please, under Q3 Outlook, or 3Q19 Outlook. Do you see that?
Yes.
And the first bullet point states, we currently expect Fortnite to generate $802 million in gross revenue in 3Q19, 28% lower than our initial forecast of $1.1 billion. Do you see that statement?
Yes.
And does that accurately reflect Epic's expectations about 3Q19 as of the date of this document?
Yes.
Now, Epic submitted the code that ultimately facilitated the hotfix on August 3rd, 2020. Do you recall that?
I don't remember the date, but I remember the general content, yes.
Very early August, correct?
To my knowledge.
And it was reviewed and uploaded within 24 hours by Apple, correct?
I don't know.
But you do know that the nature of the build and the hidden code was not disclosed to Apple, correct?
Correct.
And the day after it was approved, you sent a note to Microsoft, didn't you?
I don't remember the timing. I remember I sent an email to Phil Spencer.
Let's take a look at that email, please. It is Exhibit DX4579. Very back to your binder.
Yeah.
And Mr. Sweeney, do you recognize Exhibit DX4579 to be an email from you to Mr. Spencer on August 5, 2020?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move Exhibit 4579 into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Admitted.
And in the third paragraph of Exhibit 4579, you state that Epic has certain plans for August that will provide an extraordinary opportunity to highlight the value proposition of consoles and PCs in contrast to mobile platforms and to onboard new console users. That's a statement you made to Mr. Spencer on August 5, 2020, correct?
Yes.
You then go on to say, while I can't share details with any third party at this point, I give you Epic's assurance that our efforts will be positive and supportive of Microsoft, Xbox, and Windows, correct?
Yes.
And you're referring here to the hotfix, aren't you?
Referring to Epic Point to Cybersecurity.
Yeah. And you believe that it would make consoles and PCs appear to present a better value proposition to users in contrast to mobile platforms, correct?
Yes.
And you believe that would be an important thing for Mr. Spencer to know, correct?
Yes.
That he would be pleased with that?
I think I was presenting it as an opportunity to Microsoft.
And you also talk about it providing him the opportunity to onboard new console users, correct?
Yes.
And then 2 days later, you kind of reminded Mr. Spencer about what was about to happen, didn't you?
Not sure.
Let's take a look, please, at Exhibit 3478. No, when you there, sir?
Yes.
And do you recognize this to be an email exchange between you and Mr. Spencer on August 6th and August 7th of 2020?
Yes.
And in an email on August 7th, you respond to Mr. Spencer's message and you say, totally understood. I gather there's a lot going on at Microsoft nowadays. You stated that, correct?
Yes.
And then you go on to say, anyway, you'll enjoy the upcoming fireworks show. And that's a reference to Project Liberty, isn't it?
Yes.
And the fireworks show happened on August 13th, 2020, correct?
Figuratively, yes.
Figuratively. That was when, figuratively, the flip was switched on the hot fix, correct?
No, literally.
That was literal. All right. The hot fix was implemented.
Yes.
And the direct pay function was put in place within Fortnite on iOS.
Yes.
And you notified Apple around 2 a.m. Pacific time on August 13th, correct?
Yes.
And we've already seen that document, haven't we?
Yes.
And that was the first time that Apple was ever told of Epic's plans, correct?
Yes.
After it had been implemented, right?
Yes. Well, I'm sorry. I believe the notification was roughly simultaneous with implementation.
Thank you. And after the hotfix was triggered, you launched a PR campaign, correct?
After the hotfix was triggered, Epic announced the Fortnite Mega Drop, price drop.
And you also announced the free Fortnite Cup, correct?
We did that after Apple had bought Fortnite from iOS.
Well, sir, after the hotfix was implemented, you initiated the free Fortnite Cup, correct?
Chronologically, that is true.
And you also launched a campaign around something that says hashtag free Fortnite, right?
Yes.
And you had your graphics folks put together some caricatures of related to Apple, correct?
Epic put together a short video film called 1980 Fortnite, campaigning Apple and its policies. 1980 Fortnite, satirizing Apple and its policies.
And that was posted on August 13th, correct?
Yes, after Apple bought Fortnite.
So on August 13th, the hotfix was triggered, the lawsuit was filed, the video was posted, correct?
All those things happened on that date.
Let's please take a look at Exhibit 3724.
Assuming no objection,
Yes,
3478 is admitted.
Please move. Excuse me.
DX, we have only one piece of an objection to DX 3478, Your Honor. It's to the bottom portion of the email. There's a couple of statements from Mr. Spencer. They would be hearsay if they're being used for a non-hearsay use, and there would be no objection.
So stipulated, Your Honor. And since I standard there a little bit, Your Honor, I'll just formally move 3478 into evidence, please.
I thought that's what we were talking about.
I was trying to do. And Mr. Sweeney, do you have Exhibit 3724 in front of you?
Yes.
All right. And do you recognize this to be an article that you posted on your website on August 20, 2020?
Yes, Epic did.
and it's entitled "Join the Battle and Play in the Free Fortnite Cup" on August 23, correct?
Yes.
And if you look, please, on the second page of this, and by the way, this is another caricature of the artwork here that refers to Apple, correct?
Yes.
And if you look at the first full paragraph on the second page, you state that if you're left behind on iOS after the Chapter 2 Season 4 launch, the party continues on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, PC, Mac, GeForce Now, and through both the Epic Games app and the Samsung Galaxy Store, correct?
Yes.
And you're inviting people or suggesting to people who played on iOS devices that they could move over to any one of these other platforms to continue to play Fortnite and to pay for in-app purchases, correct?
With respect to the first part, yes, just making a reference to in-app purchases.
Well, so certainly players could make in-app purchases on each of those platforms, correct?
Yes.
And if you turn, please, to page 6, and you state, do you only play Fortnite on mobile and are worried about not being able to play Chapter 2 Season 4? Here's a couple things you can do. And then you provide step-by-step instructions on how people can play on other devices than their iOS device, correct? And you state in paragraph 2 that iOS players should check this list of alternative Fortnite-compatible devices. You may already have access to another way to play Fortnite. If so, simply install the game and log in with your Epic account to get up and running, correct?
Yes.
And you were telling them that because you knew that that was relevant to a lot of Epic game players, correct?
I think we're just helping our customers find a way to continue playing.
And Mr. Fellini, in December 2020, Epic began to sell V-Bucks on its own website, true?
I don't remember the date, but I know we do know.
And that's been going on for the last several months, whether December 2020 or some other starting date, correct?
Yes.
That was not going on as of August 13th, 2020, true?
That's right.
iOS players never had the option of purchasing V-Bucks directly from the Epic website, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So currently, though, anyone with access to a web browser can buy V-Bucks from the Epic website, right?
Yes.
And we talked about friction of transactions and things, but if you go in and you buy V-Bucks on the Epic website and put them in your V-Buck account, you then have cash on hand, if you will, when you go in and play your next game, correct?
Yes, with the exception of PlayStation and Nintendo Switch.
Because they still won't let V-Bucks purchased even from your website onto their platforms, correct?
Correct.
Now today, an iPhone user can use the Safari browser on their iPhone to go in and buy V-Bucks, correct?
Yes.
And those V-Bucks will be waiting for them when those players go onto their Xbox to play Fortnite, correct?
Yes.
And Apple doesn't earn any commission on those transactions, right?
Correct.
Because they take place outside of the App Store, correct?
Yes.
So if Fortnite were still on the iPhone, those players would have the option of making those very same transactions to purchase those very same V-Bucks to recharge their very same Fortnite account, but then play it on their phone, correct?
Yes, we'd have that capability.
Before you leave this topic, Mr. Doran, why wasn't that an option before August of last year?
No, it wasn't a very attractive option to our customers to.
Did you have the technological ability to do it, or you hadn't programmed that yet?
Yes, we simply hadn't programmed it.
But it was an option for you, you just chose not to do it?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. And when Epic sells V-Bucks from its own website, it does not pay a commission to anyone, does it?
That's right.
And nonetheless, Epic sells V-Bucks on its website for the same price that it charges across all other platforms on which Fortnite is currently played and on which people can currently buy V-Bucks, correct?
Yes.
All right, two documents, DX 3774 and 3724.
I move them both into evidence, Your Honor.
Any no objection, Ms. Ford?
Well, let me just, I'm sorry, Your Honor. 3774,
74.
we have, there's one word that I want to talk to Mr. Doran about, just literally one word that, before it goes up in the box, I'd like to ask if he and I could agree that it gets blacked out. We have no objection to the document otherwise being received into evidence.
No, I actually handle this the same way as the other document. Admit it now, we'll confer, and the court can decide.
That's fine. 3774 is admitted with that reservation. 3724,
No objection, Your Honor.
that's admitted.
And the same issue with the 3774, that it won't go up into the box until we confer it. Thank you.
Okay, and again, I need to know by lunch.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Sweeney, you use an iPhone, correct?
Yes.
People have given you, particularly I would think a person in your position, people have given you Android devices, correct?
Yes.
And you've given those away, right? You prefer the iPhone?
Yes.
You love the aesthetics of the hardware, true?
Yes.
You like the operating system, correct?
Many aspects of the operating system.
And you believe that the iPhone is a premium product, correct?
Yes.
And you understand that user privacy and security are fundamental competitive differentiators for Apple, correct?
Yes.
And you personally prefer to use iPhone because Apple's approach to maintaining your privacy, Mr. Sweeney, is superior to Google's, correct?
And that's among the reasons.
Okay. And among the reasons that you use an iPhone is because Apple's approach to customer data security is superior to Google's as well, correct?
Yes.
When I say Google, you understand I'm referring generally to Android devices, correct?
Yes.
And you value those qualities, the safeguarding of your privacy and your data, true?
Yes.
And if Apple were to compromise those fundamental differentiators, it would lose a significant competitive advantage over Android devices, wouldn't it?
I need to know about the specific changes it would make to judge whether they would make the platform more or less competitive.
Thank you, Your Honor. I pass the witness.
Okay. Correct. We'll go, Ms. Forrest, for another 8 minutes before our break.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Sweeney.
Good morning.
Mr. Sweeney, you had mentioned yesterday that you founded Epic in 1991, or the predecessor company to Epic?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the name of the entity that Epic became today?
It's now Epic Games Incorporated.
Okay. And what is the entity that is sued Apple today?
Epic Games Incorporated.
Does Epic Games Incorporated have any relationship to the Unreal Engine?
Yes.
What is that relationship?
We're the games developed in Unreal Engine.
And does the entity that sued Apple have any financial interest in the entity that owns the Unreal Engine?
Yes, it's all 100% owned.
And is the Unreal Engine distributed on iOS?
Facets of the Unreal Engine are distributed on iOS.
And for how long have facets of the Unreal Engine been distributed on iOS?
I believe for at least 2 years.
And are facets of the Unreal Engine currently distributed on iOS?
Yes.
Is there competitive gameplay in the facets of the Unreal Engine that are currently distributed on iOS?
Yes.
Let's talk about House Party. Does the entity that sued Apple here today own a company that owns House Party?
Yes.
And does the entity that sued Epic in this lawsuit have a financial interest in the subsidiary that owns House Party?
You mean sued Apple?
I'm sorry, that's wrong, Your Honor, thank you. Does the entity that sued Apple have an interest in the subsidiary of Epic that owns House Party?
Yes.
Is House Party distributed on iOS?
Yes.
Does House Party involve in competitive gameplay?
House Party includes some casual social games as part of the experience, but primarily a video chat app.
And how long has House Party been distributed on iOS?
My understanding is for years.
All right. Mr. Doran asked you some questions about a 60-40 revenue split yesterday. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
And there were questions about a publisher split of 60-40. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Can you describe to the court the difference between what a publisher revenue split means versus a distributor revenue split?
Certainly, publisher is a full-service entity that provides often development funding, funds the marketing of a game, manages the marketing of the game, and covers all of the costs of manufacturing and distribution. Whereas a distributor is generally a company that only facilitates distribution, meaning getting the physical product or visual product from the seller to the buyer.
And how does the cost structure of being a publisher relate, if at all, to the commission structure that a publisher, that Epic as a publisher has previously entered into?
Publishers generally bear the majority of the cost of all creation and distribution of a piece of software. So a publisher will have a significantly higher cost structure than a distributor. And the publisher royalty rate pays the developers, and the distributor commissions generally reflect that.
And specifically with respect to the companies that Epic has published games with reference to and that Mr. Doran talked about yesterday with the 60-40 split, what services did Epic provide?
Epic, in many cases, provided funding for the development of the product. Epic created the marketing materials. Epic often ran advertisements. Epic covered and actually manufactured floppy disks and packages to send to customers. And Epic worked with distributors, third-party companies that helped to facilitate distribution of the software to users.
And are those services that Epic provided as publisher the same or different from the services that Epic provides in the Epic Game Store as distributor?
No, the services of Epic Game Store as a digital distributor are entirely different than the services Epic provides and has provided to developers as a publisher.
Yesterday you were asked about the Epic's interest, strike that. Mr. Doran asked you some questions about the rate of commissions that the console makers charge Epic? Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know what rate Microsoft charges any other company that distributes, for which it distributes games?
No, Epic is generally not privy to terms of Microsoft deals with companies other than Epic and our subsidiaries.
Do you know whether or not Microsoft charges any companies less than 30%?
No.
Do you know what rate of commission Nintendo charges any company other than Epic for the distribution of its apps?
No, Epic isn't privy to third-party Nintendo deals.
Do you know whether or not Nintendo charges any company less than 30%?
I don't know.
Do you know the terms of any commissions that Sony charges any other company other than Epic?
No, except for Epic subsidiaries.
Do you, putting aside any Epic entity, do you know the terms of any Sony commission structure with regard to third-party companies?
No.
Do you know whether or not Sony charges any company other than Epic or its subsidiaries less than 30%?
I don't know.
You discussed earlier that Apple does not negotiate the terms of its agreements. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do the console makers negotiate terms of their agreements with Epic?
Yes.
Can you describe, let's just take Microsoft as an example. Describe generally the process by which some of that back and forth may occur.
There will be significant negotiations around a wide range of topics ranging from Microsoft marketing support of our products to technical issues and policy waivers.
And do those terms and conditions as a whole impact in any way the various terms of the commission structure?
Foundation.
You can answer with respect to Epic.
With regard to Epic.
Yes, some of the terms Epic is negotiated at different times. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Yes. Do the negotiations that Epic has with the console makers as a whole impact the commission structure that Epic enters into with those console makers?
No, Epic has not negotiated commission structures, has never negotiated different commission structure with the console makers, to my knowledge.
Let me sort of ask the question differently. Does Epic negotiate a variety of terms and conditions with the console makers?
No.
And does Epic look at its agreements holistically with the console makers?
Yes.
Does Epic's holistic review of those agreements impact all of its decisions on the terms and conditions that will be acceptable to it?
Yes.
Is that true with regard to Microsoft?
Yes.
Is that true with regard to Nintendo?
Yes.
Is that true with regard to Sony?
Yes.
That sounds like a good breaking point.
All right, thank
Let's
you.
have a recess for 20 minutes. Here at 10:35.
Shout out to you, Barack Obama. You are an amazing person. Shout out to you, Zilorissel Sin. You are an amazing person. Shark on Dodie says Shark love it. Shout out to you, Kindex KJ. You are an amazing person. Shout out to you, Ribbit Gaming. You are an amazing person.
Everything changes.
Okay, we are back on record. Record will reflect that Mr. Sweeney is on the stand. Resume your redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sweeney, you were asked some questions yesterday about side-loading apps onto consoles. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
All right. Are you familiar with the phrase general purpose device?
Yes.
Is a console a general purpose device?
No.
How would you describe a console as distinct, if it is, from a general purpose device?
Console is a fixed function device that's used primarily in conjunction with a television for gaming and other television-based entertainment experiences.
And does the fact that a console is a general purpose device have any implications insofar as you think about side loading onto a console?
Yes.
Could you please describe that for the court?
Generally, with a fixed function device, the user doesn't expect the ability to plug in a keyboard or program it or install software from other sources, whether it's a console or a thermostat or some other single-purpose device.
All right. If a banking app were loaded onto a console, could the console then be utilized in somebody's doctor's office if they went for a doctor's appointment with that banking app?
I don't understand that question.
Strike that question. It was poorly formed, Your Honor. I apologize. Are you familiar with apps that relate to banking functionality?
Yes.
Is a console what you would consider to be a portable device?
No.
If there was a banking app on a console, and would you be able to utilize it in your doctor's office to access the banking functionality?
No.
I still don't understand. You mean as opposed to going to the website where on...
The distinction...
This is right. We can access our bank accounts on our computers. We can access them on our mobile devices. So that's the point.
The point, Your Honor, is that the console is not a substitutable device in the doctor's office for utilizing functionality from many types of apps. Our contention in this case is that all apps are at issue, including the distribution of all apps is at issue, not just a game app, and therefore that the distinction is relevant.
Okay, you can answer the question. I mean, I can still access my bank account on both devices, so I really don't understand the point, but answer the question.
Mr. Sweeney?
Well, you can't bring a console with you in a mobile situation, and the console doesn't include a keyboard as a standard feature, and so it would be either very hard or impossible to use it as a general computer.
You've got a couple of consoles that were introduced into evidence yesterday, and they are, I think, right near you and on the stand. Do you see them?
Yes.
And do you recall what their names are?
Yes, it's a PlayStation 5, an Xbox Series X, and a Nintendo Switch.
All right. If the PlayStation, do you have a PlayStation in your own home?
Not currently.
Do you have a PlayStation at your office?
Yes.
And is the PlayStation, does it need to be plugged into any kind of power source?
Yes.
Are there any kind of controllers that are utilized with a PlayStation?
Yes, the game controller is a joystick.
If you have you ever had occasion to use the PlayStation in your office?
Yes.
And have you had occasion to use it with a joystick in your office?
Yes.
If you walked out of your office with the joystick, would you be able to play the PlayStation in an office on another floor?
No.
Same thing with regard to an Xbox. Do you have an Xbox at the Epic offices?
Yes.
Have you ever had occasion to utilize the Xbox at the Epic offices?
Yes.
Are there any controller devices associated with the Xbox?
Yes, there's a game controller.
Is there a power source associated with the Xbox?
Yes, the Xbox must be plugged into the wall to function.
If you had the Xbox plugged into the wall in one place within the Epic offices and then went 2 floors down in the Epic offices, would you be able to use the controller to manipulate that Xbox?
No.
Why not?
You couldn't see the screen, and And even when there's a wireless controller, it doesn't have that range.
I'd like to hand you, for demonstrative purposes, an iPhone or a device. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you identify the device and describe it generally for the court, please?
Yes, this is an iPhone. It's 5 or 6 inches in size. It has a touch screen, a camera, and is connected to a cellular network.
All right, and I'm going to now hand you one of the devices that we talked about yesterday, the switch. And I've handed you 2 things that were associated with the switch that you identified yesterday. Can you describe each to the court in turn? First, the one that has the colored pieces on either end. What is that?
This is the switch with the portable controller plugged into it. And the other item is a game controller that can be used when the switch is plugged into a television.
All right. Is there a way in which the colored portions of the switch hook into the game controller?
Yes, they detach and plug into the game controller.
Could you detach them and plug them in now?
You can see I'm not a switch player.
Well, now the whole world knows.
Now the whole world knows.
That's all right, neither am I.
I'm fine. I presume I said.
All right. Let me ask, I think I can ask the question just with the 2 pieces separately. In a situation in which you are, for instance, sitting on, do you ever have occasion to sit on a subway train or any kind of commuter transportation?
Yes.
All right. And if in instances when you're sitting on a piece of commuter transportation, such as a train, have you ever had occasion to play a game on a mobile device?
Yes.
Have you had the ability to manipulate the mobile device with a touch screen?
Yes.
And how many devices does it require you to hold at one time?
Just one.
If you are on a train and you are manipulating the switch device, how many devices would you or could you end up having to control?
Well, on the train, you could use the switch with the portable controller attached to it to a single device if you had a Wi-Fi connection, which the switch requires.
And is there an instance in which if one wanted to use the game controller, one would have to have more than one device?
Yes, if you wanted to play with the full game controller, you would need to set the switch down on a surface and then hold the game controller.
So if you were going to use the game controller with the switch, you'd have to be holding 2 devices. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
I thought the switch was all one unit that you could, right, so you don't.
Yes, you can use the switch just in this mode by itself as a single device.
Right.
Yeah.
And can you show the court the second device that is used as a game controller?
Well, I understand, but that's just additional functionality. I thought that was part of the point of the switch, is that it was pretty portable.
Yes, Your Honor.
Christy?
Are there any things that can be done using a controller that cannot be done with the buttons?
Not to my knowledge.
Does the controller provide any additional ability to manipulate any of the gameplay within the switch?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Now, you were asked some questions yesterday about your speech at the DICE Summit in 2012. Do you recall that?
It may feel like yesterday, but that was this morning.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. You were asked some questions about the DICE Summit that you spoke at in 2012 this morning. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Today, at the time you sued Epic, it was August of 2012. Sorry. My goodness.
Let's slow down.
At the time, Mr. Sweeney, that Epic sued Apple, that was 2020, is that correct?
Yes, August 13th, 2020.
Are there any differences that you are aware of in the industry that occurred between 2012 and the time that you sued Apple in 2020?
Yes.
Could you describe those for the court?
We've seen enormous growth in the entire industry. Mobile game development teams have grown from one or several individuals to, in many cases, hundreds of developers. And competition between different app makers has led to very sophisticated app economics and costs of creating apps, such that the economics that were in place in 2012 were very, very different in the economics that are in place now.
Would you today, if you were to give to give a speech at DICE, would you give the same speech with the same words?
No.
Have you heard of the phrase open platform?
Yes.
And is there any difference between what cross-platform play is and an open platform?
Yes. An open platform is a platform where one is free to install software from any source of their choosing. And generally, the user has control over the device. A closed platform is one where the user does not have that freedom. And even on a closed platform, it is still possible to have cross-platform play between different devices and different platforms, with players from each different walled garden connecting together. Connecting together into a shared experience.
Cross-platform play, strike that. Does the ability to engage in cross-platform play mean that a platform is an open platform?
No.
Does the ability to engage in cross-platform play mean that a platform has an open distribution model?
No.
There have been some questions about Google Stadia. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
Do you know whether or not Google Stadia is in existence today?
I'm not sure you want to know. I don't know what the answer to that question is, but if he has insider information about things in development, I don't know how he's supposed to answer that question. So can you rephrase it?
I believe, Your Honor, it's been publicly, there's a public announcement. I don't want to say anything else. I don't believe that I'm seeking any confidential information.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Sweeney, are you aware one way or the other as to whether or not Google Stadia has been shut down?
My understanding is that after a public launch, Google Stadia has been very significantly scaled back.
All right, and you were shown Exhibit DX3199. Can we bring that up on the stand, on the machine? Do you recall questions on this document?
Yes.
When you were, was this document reflecting an interview of you?
Yes.
All right. What platforms were you referring to, if any, at the bottom of the page where you said it proves that developers have the real power in the industry and that where developers go, customers will go with them?
Yes.
What platforms were you referring to?
I was referring to competition among PC stores. That gamers would switch PC stores to go wherever developers went with their game.
Was the topic of this interview involving iOS?
The topic of this question was not. I did not see anything in this interview pertaining to any mobile platform.
when the statement is made, it proved that developers have the real power in the industry. Do you believe that that statement is correct with regard to iOS?
No.
Why not?
Apple has complete control over what games and other apps can be distributed on iOS, and we use that to make arbitrary policies and decisions, such that Apple has all of the power and control on iOS.
In your experience, can developers move away from iOS and bring their customers with them?
No.
There were some questions about Epic Games business. When did Epic Games Store first have plans to include non-games?
This is something we have been discussing since prior to the public launch of the Epic Games Store in 2018.
And you described yesterday that there was non-game functionality on Fortnite. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Was there non-game functionality on Fortnite prior to August 2020 when this lawsuit was launched?
Yes.
When did the Party Royale first have non-game functionality?
Party Island had
Party Island, sorry.
non-game functionality from the time that we introduced the mode, and continued as we held concerts within it. And I believe that was late 2019 or early 2020.
And when were concerts first launched within Fortnite? Approximately.
So I don't remember the date of the first concert. The first concert was with the musician Marshmello. I believe that was late 2018 or early 2019.
And was that prior to the filing of the lawsuit?
Yes.
Was there competitive gameplay at the Marshmello concert?
No. When the concert began, there was just a pure entertainment experience that you couldn't win or lose.
And you've also mentioned yesterday the creative game mode within Fortnite.
Yes.
All right. When was...
Can I ask on that? When someone is a Fortnite user and they go to one of these concerts, they're still in their kind of Fortnite persona, aren't they? I mean, it's not like we're going on Zoom and with friends and you see your friends and you go into a meeting room or something like that. People are there in their kind of game mode, aren't they?
Yes, people go into these concerts with their 3D avatar, a Marvel superhero or a giant banana, and they're participating in a virtual 3D space.
Right. And so it still seems to me like, well, let me ask this. Do you have any data that suggests that anybody goes to the concerts who aren't already just Fortnite players? Do you think it's just one more aspect of the game?
Well, yeah, we've seen a significant influx of people into Fortnite when we hold concerts, and also a significant amount of lapsed players in Fortnite coming back for concerts. So,
but all in this kind of game situation, right? And there's some movies about stuff like this, aren't there?
Yeah, well, Ready Player One is an example.
Because I'm not a gamer, that's the one that comes to mind. And is it like that?
Yeah, all of this metaverse science fiction portrays a realistic 3D world in which participants have both social experiences, like sitting in a bar and talking, and also game experiences, going on chases and things.
So would that be, because I haven't seen any evidence yet presented in how this actually looks on your game platform, but would that movie kind of be the most readily accessible analogy to what is going on?
Yeah, so I think Ready Player One is a great movie example. There's also Snow Crash, the book, which kind of describes this emerging social entertainment medium that transcends gaming. But
again, the distinction is that they're going into these with their avatars, with their kind of in this gaming environment, And beyond doing competitions, then you provide other kind of experiences.
Yes, all in the virtual 3D world. You can stand there and watch Netflix with your friends, and it's different than watching in front of a TV. Because you can talk to your friends, and you can emote and throw tomatoes at the screen. And so it's a very different experience than either a game or Netflix.
But you still are monetizing that, you said, by offering people the ability to buy things while they're sitting there watching movies virtually together.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, go ahead.
And the kinds of what are the kinds of things they can buy at a concert, for instance?
Well, we typically, around the time of a concert, will promote items associated with the musician, as well as, like the Travis Scott concert included a skin or an outfit for Travis Scott, so did the Marshmallow concert. We also have emotes that are relevant to the concert. There are some that are kind of concert goer emotes of waving around glowing sticks, for example.
And are you, let me ask the question this way. Does an individual who has an avatar, do they have to engage in gameplay in order to attend a concert?
No.
Does an individual who appears in the app as an avatar, do they have to engage in competitive gameplay to watch a movie?
No.
Does an individual who appears as an avatar in the app have to engage in competitive play to create within creative mode?
No.
You aren't making a distinction, though, in terms of competitive play. People play games all the time that aren't necessarily competitive, right? Or is everything? I don't understand. If you have your Switch, you're playing Candy Crush or something like that. You're playing a game. It's not necessarily competitive against other people. You're just playing a game.
Yes, and there's typically game mechanics like a score or progression of some sort. This isn't present in these concerts.
But that's not, you aren't making a distinction that somehow people have to be playing against someone else. Is everything that you sell people playing against each other?
Hang on. And then within Fortnite Creative, this is just a tool for creating your own Fortnite island. There's nothing resembling a game mechanic at all. It's more like Barbie fashion designer, but for the Fortnite universe.
Right, and so it doesn't have to be competitive. It's just entertainment.
Yes, it's definitely entertainment.
In fact, how would you define a game?
I think a game involves some sort of win or loss or progression, whether it's an individual or a social group of competitors. With a game, you're trying to build up to some outcome that you achieve, as opposed to an open-ended experience like building a Fortnite Creative Island or writing a Microsoft Word document. There's no scorekeeping mechanic, and you're never done or you never win.
Keep going.
You were asking questions about metal. Do you recall that, Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
All right. And Mr. Doran showed you a document in which you praised metal in 2018. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. When was metal first released, approximately, if you can recall?
My recollection is in the 2014 timeframe, but I'm not certain.
So a couple of years at least before 2018?
I think so.
Okay. Do you know whether or not Epic invested any resources in improving metal?
Yes, we worked very closely with Apple as we were bringing up support for the Unreal Engine in metal, and we gave them feedback on improving their API, and they gave us feedback on improving our engine.
All right. And does the work that Epic did with regard to metal, along with Apple, Is that limited to the benefit of Epic, or will it benefit others?
I think all of these efforts we did in partnership with Apple benefit all developers.
Okay, and can we pull up DX3818, please, for a moment? DX3818. All right. And in this document, Mr. Doran pointed you to language in the paragraph on the first page regarding competition across platforms. Do you see that?
Sorry, what sentence?
Right there, in that, anywhere in there.
Yes.
Okay, do you see that language that you were pointed to by Mr. Doran?
Yes.
Okay. And does it benefit Epic to have cross-platform competition?
Yes.
Why?
Because competition ensures that users can get the best value and the best products and companies have an opportunity to win on their merit.
Is there right now cross-platform competition with iOS?
No, Apple locks iOS users into their platform and prevents competition in a lot of areas, including stores. In other words, I'm sorry, you can't purchase a game on the Epic Games Store and then go to iOS, and if the game is also available on iOS, you won't own the game on iOS. You'd have to buy it again through Apple's store. So there's no cross-platform competition in many product categories because Apple prohibits it.
You were asked some questions about Apple's ARKit. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the term API?
Yes.
Is ARKit an API?
Yes.
Is that API available for native apps?
Yes.
Are you aware one way or the other as to whether or not ARKit is available through WebKit?
Yes, Apple does not make ARKit available through WebKit.
What is the significance of that?
It means that a web app cannot compete with a native app in augmented reality, and it can't generally even exist because Apple prohibits AR from being used within a web browser to the extent of my knowledge.
Does that mean that a web app does not have access to ARKit?
Yes.
You were asked some questions about the trajectory of Fortnite usage in 2020. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you were asked questions specifically with regard to the COVID period of time in 2020 and Fortnite usage. Do you recall that?
Yes.
At the beginning of 2020, what was the trajectory of Fortnite usage?
Fortnite was going strong in early 2020, and January is my recollection.
All right. Let's pull up DX3774 if we could. Do you recall being shown this document by Mr. Doran?
Yes.
All right. And if you turn, please, to the page that is 1, 2, 3 pages in, there's a page Bates numbered at the bottom that ends at 765. Do you see that page?
Yes.
It says mobile platform fees an existential issue as Fortnite evolves. Do you see that?
Yes.
And did you see this page at the time that this presentation was shown to the Board of Directors on or about July 27th, 2020?
Yes.
And do you agree with the statement, mobile platform fees an existential issue as Fortnite evolves?
Yes.
What's your understanding as to why mobile platform fees are an existential issue as Fortnite evolves?
Sure, these fees are an existential issue to the development of the metaverse in general. Fortnite is increasingly a creator-driven platform. Companies and individuals besides Epic are creating content within Fortnite that they're working to distribute to users. And even though, because we're early in the development of a creator-based Fortnite economy. The long-term evolution of Fortnite will be opening up Fortnite as a platform for creators to distribute their work to users. And Epic is trying to build a metaverse in which creators can make the majority of profit from their own games and other entertainment experiences within Fortnite, which means that besides Epic paying all its operating costs for Fortnite servers, the majority of the revenue from creators' experiences in Fortnite should go to the creators themselves. And with Apple taking 30% off of the top, it makes it very, very hard for Epic and creators to exist in the future world.
Let's pull up, if we could, DX4579, another document you were shown by Mr. Doran. And I'd like to turn you to the paragraph that one of the parts of the document that Mr. Doran showed you, which is in the third paragraph on this page. And there's a sentence that says, Epic has certain plans for August that will provide an extraordinary opportunity to highlight the value proposition of consoles and PCs in contrast to mobile platforms and to onboard new console users. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any expectation at the time that you sent this email, which was 5 August 2020, as to the level of onboarding of new users that might occur?
Given the data we had, my understanding of platform switching has been relatively modest, but we wanted to do everything we could to enable Fortnite players to find a new home.
Were you expecting significant or insignificant onboarding of new users?
I was expecting modest onboarding of new users.
All right. You were asked some questions about buying V-Bucks through the Epic website. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
And in your view, is buying V-Bucks through the Epic website an attractive option for consumers?
No.
Why not?
And people want to buy V-Bucks in Fortnite is when they see a cool new item in the Fortnite outfit shop. And at that point in time, they're in Fortnite on some platform. And to set Fortnite aside and pull out some device, go to a website, log in, and then make a transaction there is extremely inconvenient versus a few taps on the screen using an app purchase. So generally, we appreciate that there's a huge amount of payment processing and customer friction associated with showing a user of an app an item outside of that app.
And have you seen any data as to the numbers of purchasers who complete transactions in-app versus outside of the app?
I don't remember.
Okay. Can you remind?
I just have a follow-up on this to Mr. Sweeney. Do you know the numbers in terms of the ages of the individuals who use Fortnite?
We don't track customer age.
So do you have an understanding generally whether a majority of the people who use your product are young people?
No, we understand the majority of Fortnite players to be generally young adults. It's a teen-rated game, 13 plus. So
there's a substantial or not a substantial number of children who are playing their games?
I don't know. We don't track user age as a matter of business practice.
Why is it so inconvenient that someone can't make what I would call, as a parent, an impulse purchase? That is, if I'm a parent and I say, here's your allowance, and they choose to put $10 or $15 in V-Bucks in their account, then they can use it when they want. Isn't that a responsible way to deal with a young client base? Why should we want them to have impulse, the ability to just, on impulse, buy something?
Well, Fortnite has, and most platforms have parental controls preventing children from making cash purchases. And so if a parent would buy a child V-Bucks, whether in Fortnite, on iOS, or on our website, then the child has permission to spend those V-Bucks, but not to use the parent's credit card.
Right, but isn't that what you seem to want here? I mean, people have the ability to have an account, right? You've got an account of V-Bucks or savings or whatever. What you're really asking for is the ability to have impulse purchases.
Yes, yeah, customer convenience is a huge factor in this. We find people are much more likely to make a purchase if it's easy to make a purchase than if it's really hard.
All right, Mr. Sweeney, you were shown a document. Let's pull it up. 4477 by Mr. Doran, and also I talked to you about this yesterday, and you were pointed to various portions of this document. Let me ask you whether or not Epic is suing for damages in this case.
No.
And would Epic have accepted a deal from Apple prior to the launch of the hotfix that related to relief just for itself and its concerns about Apple's policies?
Yes, that's what that's what Epic was asking for in this document. So Apple had granted us permission, and then we would have launched Fortnite Direct Payment with Apple's blessing.
Did Epic want a deal just for itself or for all developers?
I did not want a deal just for Epic. I expressed the hope that Apple would make these options available to all developers.
If Apple had told you that the deal would only be for you and no other developers, if Apple had told you that it would offer you a deal for you and no other developers, would you have accepted that deal?
Yes, I would have.
When did you first learn that the class action existed, if you can recall?
Referring to the consumer?
The consumer class action or the developer class action?
My recollection is a bit hazy, but I remember reading about the Supreme Court matter on, was it the developer class action in 2018, I believe?
And remind the court when you first distributed on iOS?
I believe in March or April of 2018. And
remind the court when you first distributed any game or product on iOS?
2010.
And did Apple require Epic to enter into a developer agreement at that time?
Yes.
And you discussed that briefly with Mr. Doran yesterday. Do you recall that?
Yes.
All right. Did Epic have any ability to negotiate the terms with Apple prior to entering into that agreement?
No, Apple's terms were non-negotiable.
If Epic had not agreed to all of the terms in that developer agreement, would Epic have been able to distribute on iOS?
No.
You also spoke briefly with Mr. Doran about communications with Apple prior to filing the lawsuit. Let me show you, if I can, a document that is PX2374. Your Honor, may I approach? And I'll also hand one to Your Honor and the clerks.
You may.
Now, Mr. Sweeney, I don't expect that you've seen the top email, but I'm interested in the portion of this document, PX2374, that appears to have come from you.
Yes.
What is this document?
Um,
The portion that comes from you?
this is an email I sent to Tim Cook at Apple suggesting that Apple make iOS an open platform in 2015.
And why did you send this email to Mr. Cook at that time?
Concerns with the Apple's business model have been building up for a period of several years. And Epic had tried to arrange conversations with Apple, I think even prior to this. I hadn't had a chance until I just sent them an email on the topic.
All right, let me show you another document which has been marked as PX. Your Honor,
Any objection? 374 is admitted.
All
I'm
right.
assuming that's what you wanted, Ms. Fuller?
it is, Your Honor, thank you. I'd also like to show the witness what's been marked for identification as PX 2421. And Mr. Sweeney, if you could let me know when you've had an opportunity to review this document.
Yes, I've seen it.
Okay, and there's a portion of the document, well, why don't you describe what the document is to the court, please?
This is an email discussion between myself and Epic Vice President Mark Rain, where we were attempting to set up a meeting with Apple to discuss our concerns with iOS, in particular in this case with Mr. Jazwiak. Is that Jazwiak at Apple?
And why were you making that suggestion?
Our concerns, we're continuing to grow with Apple's business model. We were at this point preparing to launch Fortnite on iOS. I wanted to have an executive level discussion with Apple about the topic.
All right. Your Honor, I'd like to move PX 2421 into evidence.
Any objection? Admitted.
Mr. Sweeney, lastly, you were asked some questions yesterday about, or this morning, about the Epic's June 2020 renewal of its agreement with Apple. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Was Epic able to negotiate the terms of that agreement with Apple?
No.
If Epic had not agreed to the renewal agreement, what would have occurred?
I believe our membership in Apple's developer program would have expired, and Epic would be able to own it to develop software for at least iOS devices.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
Recross limited to the scope of redirect.
Mr. Sweeney, regarding Metal, you're aware that an updated version of Metal was issued by Apple in 2017, correct?
I don't remember it specifically.
Okay, but you know that that API has continued to evolve and improve since it was first released in 2014, correct?
Yes.
Secondly, if you could please look at Exhibit 2374, which you were just shown. Do you have that?
Yes.
This is your email to Mr. Cook. Do you have that?
Yes.
And in the first paragraph, you state in the second sentence that the App Store has done much good for the industry. And did you mean that when you made that statement in June 2015?
Yes.
And looking at the last paragraph, you state that it would be extremely positive for Apple to take this approach. Well, let's back up and just read the paragraph. The paragraph starts, compliance review would keep iOS free of malware, while open distribution would combine the best aspects of the App Store with the best aspects of open platforms. It would be extremely positive for Apple to take this approach proactively before this topic is overly complicated by opposing political, regulatory, moral, and competitive forces. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
And so you understood that the way that the App Store was structured was in part impacted by competitive forces, correct?
My concern at this point in time was that it was not impacted by competitive forces.
So even though you stated that the topic may become overly complicated by opposing competitive forces, you did not, in fact, believe that the App Store was impacted by competitive forces by June 2015. Is that your testimony?
My concern at this point was that the iOS app distribution model was not subject to any competition whatsoever. That was my concern.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to focus on my question, please. You stated in your email to Mr. Cook that it would be extremely positive for Apple to take this approach before the topic is overly complicated by opposing competitive forces. And you're telling us that despite having made that statement in June 2015, your view was that there were no competitive forces impacting the App Store. That's your testimony here today.
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Sweeney, for Fortnite, iOS is accounted for about 5.5% of total Fortnite revenue through 2020, correct? Since launch.
I'm not certain.
You know it's well below 10%, though, aren't you?
Yes.
Your Honor, I failed to move Exhibit 4036 into evidence previously, I believe, and I would like to do that now.
I had it as admitted. If not, then it will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And then secondarily, I have the...
Before we move on for 4036, I don't think it had been formally offered, Your Honor. The only thing that I had on that one was an objection to the top portion of the email as hearsay. If it was being offered for a non-hearsay use, then we had no objection. The top portion is from an outside third party, Your Honor, Mr. Phil Spencer.
Again, Your Honor, it's just a statement of Mr. Spencer's position in this document. Whether he's telling the truth or not, I will not guess. But this is a position he took with Mr. Sweeney.
Admit it. If I haven't before, I'll admit it again, and obviously follow the rules of evidence with respect to its proper evidentiary value.
Thank you, Your Honor. And then lastly, Your Honor, I want to hand up the thumb drive that has the video clip on it.
Okay, you can give that to Ms. Stone.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Redirect limited to the scope of recross.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, I have a few. Mr. Sweeney, do you have any understanding of the economics of developers who engage in apps that relate to food?
No, Your Honor.
Do you have any understanding of the economics with respect to developers who have apps related to maps or GPS or traffic?
I do not.
Same question with respect to coupons or incentives.
No, Your Honor.
Same question with respect to weather.
No, Your Honor.
Same question with respect to dating.
No, Your Honor.
And the same question with respect to instant messengers.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. So you don't have any idea how what you're asking for would impact any of the developers who engage in all of those other categories of apps. Is that right?
I prefer not.
Okay. Just a few minutes ago, Ms. Forrest asked you a question about your perspectives in 2012 when you gave that speech at DICE versus now, and you talked about the growth in the entire industry, and in particular the mobile game, the developments in the mobile game industry. You gave some numbers. Apple also participates in that industry, right? That is, they have their own gaming store too, don't they?
You are referring to the iOS App Store now?
I'm talking about games in particular.
Okay, Apple has hosts the App Store on iOS and Mac, which sells all kinds of apps, including games.
I don't have anything else. Any follow-up on my questions, Ms. Forrest?
Yeah, could I correct something I said to you earlier? You asked about age knowledge. Epic, for the players, we ask for the player's age, and if the player is under 13, then we implement child safety practices required by law, but we do not retain player age information outside of that process.
Okay.
Apologize.
No, that's all right. Thank you for the clarification. Ms. Forrest, any?
No follow-up, Your Honor.
Mr. Dorn. All right, sir, you may step down.
Thank you.
Next witness. Wait, I do have another question. Mr. Sweeney. You're asking the court for equitable relief. So part of the equitable relief that I've already provided was to require that Apple keep the Unreal Engine open. What is your backup plan if I don't? What's your backup plan?
If Apple's actions are lawful, then I acknowledge Apple would have the right to remove Epic from the developer program for any reason or no reason, and then it would be up to Apple to decide. If Apple cut us off, then we would have to live without supporting the iOS platform.
Okay, thank you. All right, now next witness.
Good morning, Your Honor. Wes Earnhardt for Epic Games. We called Benjamin Simon.
Okay, and it's Mr. Hart, sorry?
Earnhardt.
While they're getting the witness, Your Honor, I'll just remove the equipment from over by the stand so nobody trips on it.
We'll take care of that, or your folks can get it over next to Francis. You can take it, Sam.
I did. All right, thank you. And pull that body to you, and then please state your full name, spell your last name.
My name is Benjamin Simon. My last name is spelled S-I-M-O-N.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You may proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Simon. Where are you employed?
Yoga Booty Co.
Does Yoga Booty Co. go by another name?
Yes, we usually use the name Down Dog publicly. We usually use the name Down Dog publicly. Yes.
What kind of company is Down Dog?
We're a small software company.
What does it develop?
We develop consumer applications for wellness practices, primarily our yoga app.
Down Dog is an unusual name. Where does it come from?
Down Dog is a yoga pose. We also wanted to make my dog the icon for the app, so it helped make that make sense.
What is your title at Down Dog?
I'm the president and CEO.
What year did you also found Down Dog?
Yes.
What year?
We founded the company in 2015.
And what did you do before you founded Down Dog?
I was a software engineer at Google for 3 years. I worked on a small team that built what's now the current version of Google Sheets for 2 years, and then I worked on Google Maps for mobile.
How many employees does Down Dog have?
Currently, we have 5 full-time employees, including myself.
And what are your responsibilities as CEO?
I oversee most of the operations of Down Dog, particularly anything involving the code and software distribution side. My co-founder handles some of the more purely business admin kinds of things.
Are you involved in overseeing the distribution of your applications?
Yes.
Are you involved in overseeing customer support?
Yes.
Are you in charge of setting Down Dog's pricing?
That's usually a conversation with me and my co-founder.
Does Down Dog have a data analytics team?
No, we do not.
Are you in charge of reviewing Down Dog's data analytics?
Yes.
Do you do that in the ordinary course of your business?
Yes.
What are Down Dog's products?
Currently, we have 5 applications. Our yoga app, we have a prenatal yoga app, a bar app, which is sort of ballet-inspired fitness, HIIT, which is high-intensity interval training, and then most recently our meditation app.
And can you just explain
My court reporter is shaking her head because you're speaking too fast.
Sorry. Fitness class and serve that to the user as instructional content that they can do yoga or meditate or work out along with.
Okay. Roughly, how many users take classes on Down Dog's apps on a given day?
We have about 150,000 practices completed across our apps on any given day.
Okay. And where do your customers access those Down Dog classes?
We have a native iOS app, as well as, or I guess for each of our 5 products, we have a native iOS app, a native Android app, and then we also have a full featured web application.
For your native iOS app, where can your customers go to download it?
Only through the iOS App Store.
How does Down Dog make money?
We are a subscription-based service, so we offer a free trial that users just need to create an account to access, and then after 2 to 3 weeks, when the trial is done, they have to subscribe in order to continue practicing in any of the apps.
And just in general, how does the subscription work once a user has one?
Any subscription gives them access to all of the apps on all of our platforms. It's a monthly or yearly subscription.
And once a user agrees to a subscription, does it auto-renew at the end of the period, or does the user have to resubscribe?
For a subscription, it typically auto-renews, although they can turn that off at any point. For the trial, there's no billing information taken ahead, so there's no auto-renew or no auto-billing of the first charge.
Okay. Where can a user purchase a subscription to Down Dog?
Via in-app purchase on the iOS native app, or in-app purchases on the Android native app. And then we also offer subscriptions via our website, where users can either use a credit card, which we process through Stripe, or they can also pay via PayPal on our website.
So for subscriptions purchased in the iOS app, what payment processor do you use?
Within the iOS app, we're only allowed to use Apple's in-app purchases. So.
Did Down Dog have to take any steps to become eligible to distribute its apps on the App Store in iOS?
Sign up as a developer, pay the $99 developer fee, and sign various agreements.
Okay. And did you in fact sign the developer program license agreement?
I believe so, yes.
Were you able to negotiate the terms of that agreement?
No.
Were you able to ask any questions about the agreement before you signed it?
Not that I recall, no.
Were you able to seek any exceptions to any of the terms within the agreement before you signed it?
Not that I recall.
How did it work functionally?
I believe it was all self-service through Apple's website, where we basically just clicked through and signed up.
Okay. Since launching Down Dog, have you had direct experiences with Apple's App Store policies and practices?
Yes.
At a high level, without getting into details now, what impact have Apple's App Store's policies and practices had on the price you charge your customers?
At a high level, we've always discounted the website subscription by at least the 30% that Apple takes, passing on those savings to our consumers. So at a very high level, not being able to publicize that offer raises prices for our consumers, and along with that, we end up with fewer people subscribing.
You answered my next question, but at a high level, what impact have Apple's policies had on your ability to attract and maintain users?
Yeah, so generally when we've done pricing experiments, we've found that around our current pricing, if we increase the price by X%, we get roughly an X% decrease in the number of subscribers. And inversely, if we lower the price, that obviously changes at the extremes. So at a high level, we're losing, the percentage of users equivalent to the increased subscription price.
Okay. And what impact have Apple's App Store policies and practices had on your ability, to provide customer service to your users?
There are a couple issues. One is simply the app review process, which slows down our ability to release bug fixes and other improvements to our users, which creates customer service issues. Additionally, a substantial customer service issue for us is that we can't issue refunds or even cancel the subscriptions of users who subscribe via in-app purchases. So those customer support complaints are ones that we can't remedy.
So let's start by talking about pricing. You testify that you sell subscriptions, both on the web and in your iOS app, correct?
Correct.
How does your standard pricing compare between subscriptions purchased on the web versus subscriptions bought through the iOS app?
For the past year, the standard in-app price has been $59.99, as in $60 per year, or $9.99 per month. And then on the website, it's been $39.99 per year, or $7.99 per month, which we generally advertise as a 33% discount for the yearly one at least.
So just to make sure I have that right, the iOS prices are 33% higher than the web prices?
The iOS prices are actually 50% higher because of the way that math works out. The web prices are 33% lower than the iOS prices. Sorry. The iOS prices are 50% higher than the web prices, which is the same as saying the web prices are 33% lower than the iOS prices.
Okay. And why is it that you charge more for subscriptions purchased in-app on iOS than on the web?
Primarily, it's because of the 30% commission that Apple takes. We see no reason why we should make more money on users who subscribe via our website. Additionally, we find there are other reasons that we think it's better for us and our customers to subscribe via our website. The lack of the ability to issue refunds and otherwise manage their memberships being the primary one, which is why we're okay actually even making a little less on the website purchases.
So who ultimately bears the cost of Apple's 30% commission on iOS from your subscription payments?
I would say that our customers do.
Okay. Could Down Dog offer subscriptions only on the web, and still offer an iOS app?
I'm not entirely sure. I believe it would at least be difficult in that we wouldn't be able to tell users how they can subscribe within the app. So if there's no subscription option within the app, that would be a rather confusing experience for users.
Could DownDog offer an iOS subscription in the app without using Apple's in-app payment processor to avoid the 30% fee?
No, that is explicitly forbidden.
Forbidden by what?
The App Store review guidelines.
Do you like that policy?
No, we do not.
Why did you agree to it?
We have no ability to negotiate those terms, and we feel we can't grow our business without having an iOS native app.
Does DownDog ever run discounted pricing promotions?
We do, typically 4 times a year. It's typically Memorial Day, Labor Day, Cyber Monday, and New Year's.
Do you have a typical amount by which you discount the prices?
That has varied. It's typically between $15 a year and $24 a year. Most recently, we did a promotion for New Year's in January where we offered the subscription at $14.99 per year.
And why is it that DownDog runs these pricing promotions?
Generally, we consider it part of our mission to provide specifically affordable wellness practices to the world. We found that doing promotions have been an effective way to offer our product at a cheaper price to those who can't afford it.
And does DownDog make those promotional offers available for purchase on iOS?
Typically, we do not.
And why not?
There's 2 reasons. One is that at the time of a promotion, it's very confusing to be talking about 2 different prices. And when we discount the app that much, we really can't afford to give 30% to Apple. I believe that the $14.99 per year price, if a user practices every day, we actually lose money just on the music licensing fees that we have to pay. So we really can't afford to give 30%. Additionally, Apple's in-app payment system makes it somewhat difficult to change our prices. A change in price requires a new product, which requires a review by Apple, which requires an update. And so in particular, if we want to do an experiment of prices or if we don't plan far enough ahead, it's very hard to do a sale on iOS.
Would DownDog charge its customers less for in-app subscriptions on iOS absent Apple's policy?
Yeah, I think so.
Both when running a promotion and normally?
I'm not sure if we would run the promotions on iOS because of the other issues I just explained, but yes.
Just want to make sure I understand the economics. Is there any change in content based on whether a user subscribes in iOS versus on the web?
No, there is not.
And if the user subscribes in iOS and on the web, which platforms on what can the user access the app?
Regardless of where they subscribe, they can access the app on Android, iOS, or the web.
And for the user, which subscriptions are cheaper, web or iOS?
Web.
Okay. So do all of your users therefore subscribe on the web?
No. Among our iOS users, it's roughly 50-50.
So 50% subscribe in the app on iOS for more?
Correct.
How do you explain that?
Apple, in addition to prohibiting us from implementing an additional payment method, does not allow us to direct users to a separate payment method or even present a link to our website. So unless the 50% of users who do subscribe on our website hear about that offer via email. However, email doesn't reach all users for a variety of reasons, spam, just missing it. And also some users will choose to subscribe before they ever get that email. So because we can't advertise the website offer within the app, we end up having, again, roughly half of our users subscribe via in-app purchase at the higher price.
And what's... of our users subscribe in the in-app price.
That's correct.
So what's your view on that restriction?
I think it, again, increases prices for our users and reduces the number of subscribers. For that particularly, we also have evidence from the fact that on Android, we do include a link to purchase on our website. And on Android, only about 10% of our users choose to use the in-app purchase option.
Okay, if you don't like the restriction that prevents you from telling your users that you have lower prices elsewhere, why did you agree to it?
We don't feel we have any other choice.
I'll show you one document now. May I approach, Ron?
Okay.
Binder for you, but I understand that.
That's fine.
Okay. Just turn to that binder to the document labeled PX2790. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, this seems to be the App Store review guidelines.
And you have to agree to the terms within these guidelines in order to distribute your Down Dog products on Apple's App Store?
So I believe the developer agreement references the guidelines, but I know the guidelines are updated pretty often, and I don't believe developers are notified when it's updated or asked to re-agree to them.
Do you have to comply with these guidelines as your products are available in the App Store?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to admit PX2790.
Any objection? Started.
If you could turn to the page PX2790.10. 2790.10. And you see there's a section there, 3.1.1.
Yes.
That says in-app purchase?
Yes.
Are you familiar with that?
I am.
And what is it?
This is the section that stipulates under what conditions developers are required to use the in-app purchase mechanism and some of the rules surrounding that.
You see the last sentence reads, apps and their metadata may not include buttons, external links, or other calls to action that direct customers to purchasing mechanisms other than in-app purchase. See that?
Sorry, I recognize that one, but I don't see it.
Should be the last sentence under 3.1.1.
Oh, yes, I do.
Have Apple enforced that policy at the Down Dog?
Yes, they have.
And how has it? How?
We have been rejected upon submitting new updates that have included the link. We've also been rejected for having an enter code field in our menu. We've also been rejected for a dialogue in our app that allows users to email us a message if they can't afford the subscription. And also a few times when the link in the app has been activated for a few days, Apple has notified us after the fact that we've been in violation of their guidelines.
Let's switch and talk about your Android app for a moment. You have an app that runs natively on Android, is that right?
Yes, we do.
How, if at all, is Down Dog's Android pricing different from its iOS pricing?
Not different.
On the Android app, are you able to tell users about the alternative web-based subscription option?
Yes, Google did remove us temporarily over last summer, saying that we violated their policies. However, at the time, we didn't think their policies actually did prevent that. They did put us back in the store at that point, and they've since revised their guidelines, but said they're not going to start enforcing them until August of this year.
And on your Android app, do you in fact tell users that a subscription is available through the web for a cheaper price?
Yes, we do.
What percentage of Android users choose to subscribe on the web?
Roughly 90%.
So what does that mean for the average price that an Android user pays versus the average price that an iOS user pays?
Given that it's roughly half and half on iOS, and the price difference is 33%, I think it must be around a 15% reduction in the average price paid on Android.
So you charge the same price on both iOS and Android, but the average price your user actually pays is higher on iOS. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what is the cause of that phenomenon?
Apple's restrictions on telling our users about the website option from within our app.
Okay. If someone were to tell this court that Apple does not control how app developers charge their customers, because app developers like Down Dog can offer subscriptions sales outside of the app, how would you respond to that?
Suspend. That's the form.
Do you believe you have control over how you charge your customers in iOS?
No.
And why not?
Again, we're restricted in our ability to communicate with our customers from within our product.
Okay. Let's talk more about your subscriber numbers. Have you taken any steps to determine exactly, how Apple's policies impact Down Dog's ability to attract new subscribers?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Have you taken any steps to determine how Apple's policies, as compared to Android, for example, impact Down Dog's ability to attract new subscribers?
When Google announced that they were going to essentially implement the same policy and start enforcing it as Apple has regarding the mentioning of other payment options, we decided we should find out what that was going to cost us in a year. So we ran an experiment where for a small number of users, we did not include the link to purchase on our website, which effectively made it equivalent to the iOS experience. When we did that, we saw, I think it was like 55% of users subscribed in-app, which roughly matches what we see on iOS, versus the more normal 10% who choose the in-app when they are provided the explicit link to purchase on our website.
Your Honor, Mrs. Craig is not involved regarding Apple. The answer was regarding
No, the question was what steps?
Suspend. We're going to have to restate your question, listen to the question, and respond to the question itself.
Have you taken any steps to determine how the presence or absence of a restriction on telling your users that they can subscribe on the web app impacts Down Dog's ability to attract new subscribers?
That's a hard thing to measure directly on iOS because we're not allowed to include the link.
So on Android, did you take any steps to determine what impact that would have?
Yes, should I repeat my previous statement?
Please.
On Android last August, we ran an experiment where for a small percentage of users, we did not display the link within the app to purchase on our website, which made the treatment effectively the same as our normal iOS treatment. And what we found was if we didn't include the link, we saw roughly the same proportion of subscribers using in-app purchases versus the website that we see on iOS, versus, as I said earlier, the only 10% that normally use the in-app purchase app on Android.
And what impact would you see on overall subscriptions?
Overall, I believe there was a 28% reduction in the number of subscribers.
So whether they describe in the app or on the web, during this experiment, you saw 28 fewer subscribers in total.
28% fewer, correct.
And to what did you attribute that?
I assume it's primarily just the higher price. Feasibly, you could imagine that some users actually don't want to use Google in-app's billing system and would prefer to put in their own credit card information.
I asked you some questions before about the impact of Apple's policies on customer service issues. I want to ask some more questions about that. Who processes Down Dog's customers' purchases on iOS?
Assuming you're referring to purchases made within the iOS app, it's Apple processes those payments.
Anyone else?
No.
Why not?
Again, it's forbidden for us to use another payment processor within our app.
And does Apple charge a fee for the payment processing?
Yes, they take 30% and I believe 15% after 1 year for recurring subscriptions.
Okay, so on iOS in the app, who collects the user's billing information?
Apple, although in reality I think they already have the billing information.
And who maintains and controls that billing information?
Apple.
And who handles issues that later arise concerning billing or refunds?
Your Honor.
Well, you need to be next to a mic because we can't hear you. And second, keep your objections to legal objections. I don't need discussion. Overruled. You can answer with respect to what you know. And not assuming, not guessing, no. Go ahead.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. When your customers want a refund, who handles that on iOS, in the iOS app?
Our customers often email us or message via the app, but ultimately only the Apple customer service team can issue them a refund if they purchased using in-app purchases.
And why is that?
Apple doesn't include as part of their in-app purchase API the ability to refund or suspend a user's subscription.
Does that
You get your 30% back when that happens?
I'm not sure if we get our 30%. Oh, wait, sorry. Sorry, in what case?
Well, if Apple's processing the payment and you have to pay Apple 30% commission on the subscription, and they give a refund, don't you get your 30% back?
I mean like our 70% back.
And you're 70%.
I believe that in the case of a refund, well, sorry, in the case of a refund, they're actually taking the money back from us, right?
So they're giving you, so anyway, it's a wash, so you go back to the beginning.
Yes, we basically never received the payment. We never received the 70% that we would have otherwise gotten if they issued the refund. And I presumably they don't receive their 30% either.
How, when someone asks for a refund, in what period of time does that happen?
Meaning how long for them to get the refund, or when do they ask for the refund?
Do you have a policy about when people can ask for refunds?
We don't have a public policy, though in practice on our website, if you go to our support page and you ask for a refund, if it's been within 7 days of a monthly subscription payment or 30 days of a yearly subscription payment, you can get the refund all on your own without even talking to our customer service team. If it doesn't qualify for that, you can email our customer service team, and then sometimes we'll issue a refund anyway, depending on the circumstances.
Okay, so because you have such a short period of time for a refund, there might not have been a transaction from Apple giving you your 70%. Right?
Sorry, that's in the case. Sorry, what I just spoke about was the case where they made a website purchase that we're able to refund. In the Apple case, we can't issue a refund, so all we can do is tell the user to ask Apple for a refund. My general understanding is that Apple typically doesn't do refunds unless it's been within 24 hours of the payment. So I agree. Apple also has a long delay before we actually receive payments. Typically, it's 45 to 60 days after the payment. So I believe that's correct, that we basically just never received the proceeds of payments that were refunded.
And do you get monthly payments from Apple?
We do.
Okay, and those transactions are for things that happened 45 days prior?
Correct.
I see. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Do you believe it's important to Down Dog's customer service to be able to issue refunds when they're warranted?
Yes.
And on iOS, are you able to do that?
Only if they purchase via our website.
Is that fact that you're not able to issue the refund yourself for users who subscribe in the app ever cause blowback to Down Dog?
Yes, it does.
In what form?
There are a variety of issues. The most common is users who subscribe right before we either do a sale or in the last year, we've actually done a lot of periods of making the app completely free for the pandemic. In those cases, if a user recently made a payment and contacts us, we'll just issue them a refund. In the Apple case, we can't do that. There are also cases where users mistakenly try to purchase our sale price via the app, but not seeing the website discounted option, end up going through Apple's flow and purchasing at the full price, and then later complaining to us that they didn't receive the discount.
And when you receive these complaints from your customers for folks who subscribe in the iOS app, what do you do?
Typically, we apologize and give them directions for how they can request a refund from Apple's customer support. And we also tell them that they can tell Apple that we're totally okay with the refund.
In your view, does that live up to the standard of customer service that you would want for your company?
No.
Why not?
As I previously stated, we have a much more generous refund policy just in terms of the number of days since a payment. But more substantially, that doesn't allow for any one-off scenarios where, for example, we make the app free for healthcare workers and therefore want to refund a healthcare worker. Sorry. That doesn't allow us to issue refunds for specific reasons that Apple isn't going to understand. For example, the existence of a promotion that went into effect after a user subscribed.
Would you handle payment processing?
Sorry, can I actually add one thing to that? Of course. It also changes certain decisions around, for example, removing features, where if we can't refund users who, so for example, we recently removed the ability to play practices offline because it was only used by 0.5% of users. That 0.5% of users might really care about that feature. And so if users complain about that, we'll typically refund them because we're no longer offering the exact product that they subscribed to. But again, we can't do that if their subscription was made through Apple.
And again, why can't you?
Because Apple doesn't allow us to.
Would you handle payment processing and billing and refunds differently for those folks who subscribe in the app on iOS if you could?
Yeah.
How would you handle it?
We would give refunds the same way we do for our website purchases. I'll also note that on Android, we are able to issue refunds, and we do so there.
Okay, let's talk about payment processing on the web. Who processes customer purchases of subscriptions for Down Dog products when the user subscribes on the web?
The user has two options. They can enter their credit card information directly, in which case it's processed by Stripe. They can also use PayPal.
Okay, so, and on the web then, who collects the user's billing information?
In PayPal's case, it's completely within PayPal. In Stripe's case, the credit card number is entered onto our webpage, but is sent directly to Stripe. It never touches our servers.
And who maintains and controls that information?
Stripe and PayPal.
And who receives the payment in the first instance for web subscriptions?
Sorry, I don't think I understand the question.
Do the payments go to Stripe and PayPal, or do they come directly to Down Dog?
They go to Stripe and PayPal, and then those two companies do payouts to us.
Now, on the web, can you issue refunds?
Yes.
Can you cancel subscriptions?
Yes.
Can you provide direct customer service to your clients?
Yes.
Why can you do that on the web, but not on iOS?
There's no arbiter of what we're allowed to do on the open web platform.
How does that change the customer service experience on the web compared to iOS?
It allows us to provide a superior customer service experience on the web.
Let's talk about security for one moment. You mentioned this, but I just want to reiterate it. Do the subscribers' credit card numbers ever reach Down Dog service?
No, they do not.
And is that important to Down Dog?
Yes.
Why?
That's obviously important information, which if it did live on our servers, we would have to obviously take many precautions to make sure that information is secure. I believe there are specific legal regulations around credit card information specifically, all of which is dodged by having that information goes directly to Stripe.
Have you ever had any type of security issue arising from web-based subscriptions?
We have had a few users claim that their credit card information had been stolen, meaning that like the person who put in their credit card information was committing fraud, but not as a result of anything on our part.
Let me ask a better question. Have you had any type of security issue caused by the fact that the user subscribed on the web as opposed to in the app on iOS?
No, we have not.
Does Down Dog pay a fee in connection with the services that Stripe and PayPal provide?
Yes, we do.
And how much do you pay?
I believe it's 30 cents per transaction plus 2.9%. It's slightly higher for transactions made not in United States dollars.
Now, in your view, taking into account all the various factors, who provides a better payment processing service, Apple or Stripe?
Stripe.
And in your view, taking into account all the factors, who provides a better payment processing service, Apple or PayPal? Now, assuming that Apple and Stripe services cost exactly the same, would you prefer to use Apple's payment processing service or Stripe's?
Stripe.
Does Apple's in-app payment service provide anything of material value to you that you did not receive from Stripe?
It's perhaps slightly easier for users to go through the payment flow for in-app purchases, versus having to look up their credit card number. But besides that, no.
I believe that justifies Apple's 30% fee compared to Stripe's 3% fee?
No.
In your experience, has Apple applied its App Store guidelines consistently and fairly?
No.
Have you ever offered free trials?
Yes.
What are free trials?
When a user creates their account, simply by providing their email address, they have free access to all of the apps for a set period of time before we ever try to collect their billing information.
Does Apple have policies regarding how free trials can be conducted in iOS?
Yes.
And what is in your experience with those policies?
Most notably, last summer, we were rejected several times with the reviewers telling us that we had to implement our free trial using in-app purchases, which would require that the trial would auto-charge them at the end of the free trial period.
And can you just explain what that means? What would be required for the use of in-app purchase such that the user would be auto-charged at the end of the period?
So essentially, after the user signs up, before they could ever try out the app, substantially actually do a class, they would have to go through Apple's payment flow to subscribe the in-app purchases. Though they are not actually charged until the free trial is done, they can turn off the free trial before and avoid a charge. However, we can't provide a way for them to do that from within the app.
sorry. So now,
Correct. 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 Correct.